What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Press Coverage, where we help you gain an edge in fantasy football. I'm your host, as always, Wyatt Alone. With me tonight, Mr. Pure Potential, Paul Patterson, to talk about what happened in week 16, heading into fantasy football finals, and everything beyond that. Paul, how are you?
Doing great, Wyatt. Appreciate the invite to come on today. This is truly an honor, right before the most significant week of the season. I guess you've truly saved the best for last year, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah. How is your season going? How many championships are you looking at?
Dude, it has been honestly remarkable. I can't believe the where I'm sitting right now. So I'm very much like Dynasty centric. I don't really even play redraft at this point. I did one FFPC Big Gorilla, which is like a big seasonal tournament, has the tournament at the end. Me and my friends split that. We actually won our league, so we did that. Our team totally bombed the sprint, so we're not going anything in the sprint. But my dynasty teams right now, I'm in 31 dynasty leagues because I have some sort of mental condition. 14 of them are headed to the finals. I went 14-3 this week in semifinals. We kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it just didn't. I lucked out in some spots where like one of my opponents started Woody Marks over Kenneth Gainwell, and that was the difference. Like I just ran so pure this week, so I'm feeling great heading into finals week, hoping to bring home some hardware.
I had a tough year in managed leagues. Personally, I didn't hit as many playoffs as I would like. I had 4 significant matchups out of my, I think it's 17 managed leagues this year. Like it got rough here at the end. Yeah. I was invested in some players that had bad weeks during this time, but 2 finals, 2 third place matchups going. Nice. So it's hard to complain too much. I won a semifinal with a Dynasty Superflex with Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Trevion Henderson in my lineup.
Oh my gosh.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
CMC pulled it through in the end for me, but underdog, I got a team through to the finals. We got one in the palm too. Fast draft, been crushing it over there. Have you dipped your toes in fast draft yet?
I have not. I honestly fell way behind on all the best ball stuff. I guess just because I was doing more content this summer, I probably only did like maybe 50 drafts on underdog. I had one team left this week. I think I finished like 11th in the pod. So no sweats on underdog, no best ball stuff. But yeah, Dynasty's looking good.
All right. Well, we're going to have to get you on Fast Draft. Use code Wyatt when you sign up for that deposit match.
Yes, sir.
All right. First player of the day, a conversation I've been trying to put off and not have for a while because Justin Jefferson has disappointed many of us for a very long period of the season. From weeks 10 to 15, he averaged just 6.2 PPR points per game, despite still having a 27.5% target share. Now, this past week, we got a little bit of brightness in our lives. 6 catches, 85 yards, 14.5 PPR points. That target share shot up 36.4% in week 16 alone. This is through a J.J. McCarthy injury mid-game. We got more Max Brosmer, which no one wants to see. But we don't know what's happening with the Vikings conversation or QB situation. So how are we feeling about Justin Jefferson, like just in general? I just want your thoughts on what's going on here.
Not good. Yeah, I mean, I update dynasty rankings every week, so I haven't been able to like tiptoe around the Justin Jefferson conversation. Every week it's like staring me in the face on a spreadsheet. Where does this guy actually belong in terms of his long-term value? And the Vikings have really put themselves in a bad spot with the quarterback where I just don't think J.J. McCarthy is it. Frankly, I think he should be like incarcerated for what he has done to the skill players in Minnesota. But like, certainly he's shown a couple, decent games. He could improve. I don't think he's a franchise solution for this team, but they don't really have options. There's no free agent quarterbacks out there. Marcus Mariota is about the best you're going to find. Maybe you can ask the Cardinals about Kyler Murray. Maybe the Colts don't want to bring back Daniel Jones post Achilles tear. They could look that direction. But I mean, it's really bleak in the quarterback situation. And you want to believe a guy like Jefferson is immune to that. But I mean, he simply hasn't been this season. Obviously not a terribly old player, but he's going to be 27 in the summer. And so you start getting to the point where like, is he going to be a top 24 redraft pick next year? If JJ McCarthy is the week 1 starter and, and the backup is someone equally uninspiring. So for me, he's fallen outside of my top 5 dynasty wide receivers pretty easily. I have him behind like the guy likes of Drake London easily behind like CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And yeah, I'm pretty hands off, I think, with this Vikings situation in general right now.
I agree with you that I don't have a lot of faith in JJ McCarthy as a quarterback in the NFL right now, based on what we've seen. Now, could that improve? Absolutely. He has made improvements this season, except he's coming from such a low bar. Those improvements don't bring him up to a level that we can get excited about. The Vikings, I think, have to do something, whether they want to give him a chance to win the job in 2026 and like bring in a veteran presence that's not immediately better than him. You know, it's like, or there's a reasonable competition that can happen. Maybe.
Yeah.
I've said earlier that I think Mac Jones makes a lot of sense for this team. I know I'm not the only person to say that. We could see if they go in the route of Mac Jones, I think he's just their quarterback. I'd love to see that personally if I'm a Justin Jefferson manager.
No, I would love that. I actually think the 49ers would be the holdup there. I think they'd be pretty hesitant to move him. Like, he saved their season. They know that he's a guy that he can fill in for Purdy and, you know, give you very serviceable numbers, and he's on a cheap deal. So it's like, I think the asking price would be pretty high, even if they're willing to listen on that, which is why it just is so hard to come up with solutions. Like, I think from the Vikings angle, that makes a ton of sense. I think KOC could work some magic with Mac Jones. I don't know if the 49ers are picking up the phone.
Yeah. You know, thinking about just the 2026 season, it's almost like I can't project Justin Jefferson at this point because I have to find out more about what the Vikings are going to do at QB. And I'm more or less going to, like, when early ADPs come out, when drafts start right after the season's over, I'm kind of going to just see, like, where does it start? Where does it go? And then I can decide if I want to dip in. In Dynasty, I think if you ever have a chance to buy a player like Justin Jefferson, it's something I'm going to be interested in general. It's just, what is that buy? Does this make tier downs from those top wide receivers a possibility? Is there an attractive tier down from Amon-Ra St. Brown to Justin Jefferson? I might explore that. Is there an attractive tier up now from like that collection wide receivers who tend to like float around the top 12 but can always bounce in and out of there? Is there a possibility that's a nice option there to trade up to Justin Jefferson? Do you have interest in those kinds of trades?
Honestly, so I've been much more of a seller than a buyer at this point, and part of that was because, you know, I was in leagues where I was headed for the playoffs. I didn't really want to be relying on him. So, for example, you know, I made a trade that I think it sounds kind of jarring just to say because of where these guys have been valued previously. Like, I moved Jefferson for George Pickens, a 2027 second, and a 2027 fourth round pick, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And certainly, I mean, I feel like, you know, you're kind of selling at a low point there, but at the same time, if we assume Pickens returns to Dallas, which I guess you can't say is 100% lock, but I really struggle to see them letting him out of the building, you know, 1,500-yard season. These teams don't just let wide receivers walk out like that. I think he's getting franchise tagged, you know, at worst, if they don't want to give him the long-term deal. What he's done this year, 16, 17 points per game. He's a younger wide receiver. He's shown massive improvements in his game. Like, I think that there is a question of like, do we just buy into the name value, or do we want to really think about, you know, what is the most likely outcome for this player? But it is tempting because if they could get a significant quarterback upgrade, you know, he's still commanding those 28, 29% target shares, and then things turn around quickly. So I think I am also interested to see where he lands in seasonal leagues, but also in the offseason and Dynasty. If people start to, you know, worry more and more about this situation, that's when I would probably change my tune and maybe start going after him.
Yeah. Another one of these players I think has surprised people, but in the opposite way, is Kenneth Gainwell, our second player of the day, because over the last 6 weeks, he's been a legitimate league winner. Over the last 6 weeks, 14.3 PPR points per game. He's playing over 50% of snaps, getting almost 50% of the backfield opportunities, and over 18% target share in that time. He is basically their wide receiver one. I mean, there's like no way around this. Aaron Rodgers loves him. He's been playing well with the opportunities he gets, and he's a big part of what they're doing. I think like he's a player where it'd be very hard to keep him out of your lineups if you're going into championships. In fact, I think you almost have to start him. But the thing for Kenneth Gainwell is, outside of this coming championship week, which I think most people at this point have caught up to, Well, he's not under contract in 2026, and we don't know what the Steelers are even going to be doing in 2026 because we don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to be doing in 2026. Just in general, thoughts on Kenneth Gainwell? Is this a player like you're buying into what he's doing this year? Like, could it happen somewhere else? Could it happen again? What do you think?
So no joke. I actually pinged everyone in my Discord and said, or at least in the members area of the Discord, I said, if you are in a league without a trade deadline in Dynasty, Kenneth Gainwell is the best like bang for your buck player that you can go out and trade for right now, because he is a must start in the championship. And for the most part, he's probably not going to, command a massive price in Dynasty because of the reasons you just said. I mean, he's going to be a 27-year-old free agent running back after this season. He's never had any notable stretch of production as a lead back. Back when he was on my Eagles, he was just a long down and distance specialist. He's never been anything special as a rusher. I still don't think he's anything special as a rusher. I think he's been able to break a couple explosive plays, where there's been holes that he could exploit. But I think where he really has shined is in the passing game. And I think it's just this is like a very, right place, right time situation for Gainwell, where he's basically Alan Lazard in running back form for Aaron Rodgers, like just this guy that for whatever reason, he just gravitates towards. He trusts him. He likes him. He wants him on the field. If we assume that 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers retires after the season, I don't think that there's really much to be excited about with Kenneth Gainwell. Even if the Steelers were to re-sign him with a different quarterback next year, I think he's probably nothing more than a thorn in the side of Jalen Warren or, Caleb Johnson or whoever. So it's like a very specific thing for me where I'm totally happy to acquire him or keep him and ride it out for this last game. I would pretty happily sell him off for, like a 3rd round pick in Dynasty, early 3rd round pick, see if you can get more, I guess, if I don't need him, or after the season, if people think this is somehow sustainable, because I just don't see it. I just don't see, no team really wants to build their offense this way, where it's like, yeah, we're going to give a running back a 17% target share, and just like Aaron Rodgers can't move. So he just immediately 1.5 seconds after the ball is snapped, he doesn't want to get hit. He looks for Gainwell and he throws it to him. Like, it's not, I don't think it's something that you're really designing into the offense. So it's been awesome. He's been a humongous hit if you were to stash him, obviously, and you want to start him in week 17, but it's I think it's pretty murky moving forward.
It is murky looking forward. And because of the unknown of what's going to happen with him and how this seemed to just fit right perfectly this point in time, but I don't know if it's going to actually continue here again or anywhere else. I could see people getting over their skis thinking about the future with Kenneth Gainwell. It would not surprise me if free agency comes around, say Aaron Rodgers is gone, and a team gives him a contract that looks like something where he will have a relevant role for them that we should care about, and it still not end up happening like this again, just because of how perfect of a situation this ended up being. I'm not trying to badmouth Kenneth Gainwell. In fact, I think he's looked better this year than he ever has before. You talk about like his rushing ability. I think, you got to remember Arthur Smith, for everything we've talked about him, can he design a run game? Okay.
Yes, he can.
And he can really put running backs in position to win. No shade to Kenneth Gainwell, but that's the reason why he's probably looked better than he ever has is this running game. So thinking about just the future and what it can do, I imagine he's going to have a role on a team somewhere. I just don't know if we're going to care about that role that much. So like what you said, in Dynasty, if someone wanted to pay me a 3rd and I don't need him for week 17, or if they want to pay me a 3rd when the season's over, I'll probably just take it and move on. I bet you could rebuy a player like Kenneth Gainwell or that level of player again with that 3rd round pick in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I think on another team, he's LaQuint Allen, he's Jeremy McNichols, maybe a little better than those guys, but like, I just don't think that most teams are going to look at Kenneth Gainwell and say, like, this is a guy that has to be on the field a lot, has to take a lot of carries. If you're in a best ball league, whether that's dynasty or seasonal, he could still have some appeal moving forward. Like, it's possible he could have enough of a part-time role to mix in for a spike week here and there. I just don't see him as more than like a, 4 to 5 carries, 2 to 3 targets a game type of player in a future environment, unless for whatever reason, the Steelers want to continue to torture their fan base bring back Aaron Rodgers for another season. And he says, I'm not coming back without Kenny. If that's the case, then selling for a third would be kind of a bummer because he'll probably just do this again next year. But that's the only scenario that I can think of.
Yeah, okay. It's first round of the playoffs. The Steelers just got knocked out, of course, in the wild card round. And Aaron Rodgers says, I'm coming back for 2026.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on Kenneth? Like, are you hanging on? Are you trading for Kenneth Gainwell?
I mean, at that point, I'm probably holding on to him. I feel like I would just value him kind of similar to a lot of running backs that we kind of go year by year with. At that point, like, is he that different from a DeAndre Swift type? Is he that different from, Rico Dowdle, a Chuba Hubbard, Woody Marks? Is he that? I think I'd like him better than some of those guys at that point. But if I thought he was going to come back and have that exact role again next year, then there'd at least be some upside there. But I wouldn't go crazy because this is still like kind of a Linsanity run that is hard to replicate.
Yeah, understanding that it's possible this could happen again, but that possibility seems pretty low.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a quick minute to hear about the DFS Dominator, and we come back. We're gonna talk about DJ Moore.
So let's put our hoodie on and let's talk about Player Profiler's DFS Dominator. It has a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Billy and Bradley and Evan and that Player Profiler AI engine to create cash game lineups that certainly have a high floor, but also give you that ceiling. Now, you've probably heard about the most powerful tool of all, our Lineup Genius. We know winning GPPs requires a completely different approach, which is why our Lineup Genius takes you through the process of selecting the quarterbacks in the juiciest matchups. Then it highlights the stacks and runbacks that are available, lets you pick the chalk level, lets you pick the level of correlation with a number of other proprietary settings available to you. Click a button and it generates hundreds of lineups to be imported into FanDuel and DraftKings. And it's just $45 a year, not a week, a year. So go fight fire with a Player Profiler DFS Dominator.
Back here on press coverage with Paul Patterson, and now we're on to DJ Moore, who's been having a pretty disappointing season overall, I would say. 11.1 PPR points per game, just a 15.6% target share, as the Bears have kind of moved in towards this youth that they've got with Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Colson Loveland. Over the last couple weeks, Rome Odunze out, Luther Burden gets hurt mid-game 2 weeks ago, and DJ Moore's kind of picked up the slack and kind of shown that he still has this talent that he's had for most of his career. 22.4 points per game, 21.1% target share over those 2 games. He's still under contract till 2029, which was crazy when I looked up that year. I didn't remember that it was for that long. But I still think, like, when everyone's healthy, I worry what DJ Moore is in this offense at this point. I think that Caleb Williams has taken some big strides and he's going to be able to support multiple weapons, but I'm not sure if DJ Moore is high enough in the pecking order that after week 17, basically, we're going to care. What do you think?
Yeah, I was pretty hands off with DJ Moore just because I was a big believer in Luther Burden, Colson Loveland coming into the season. I thought those guys were, extremely talented. This new regime immediately goes and invests in those guys. It doesn't reflect very well on DJ Moore. And he had a very lackluster 2024 season as well, where he was clearly disgruntled by the offense, but like, he was not winning on routes. He was not winning, down the field like he had in the past. So obviously fairly, still relatively young to say like, oh, he's completely lost a step. He's not good anymore, but he certainly looked like he had fallen off from his peak that we saw in like 2022, 2023. So I was pretty out on DJ Moore, and that's kind of what we've seen this year, where most of his production has been, manufactured to some degree. He's taken, had some screens, a lot of stuff close to the line of scrimmage. These past couple weeks, though, the overtime touchdown, obviously, he's able to create a little bit of separation. To be fair, not a lot of separation on that overtime touchdown, but certainly enough speed to get a step on the DB. Brings in the contested catch. So he certainly still has some ability, but I agree with you. Like, when everyone's healthy, I think he's probably 4th on the totem pole, maybe 3rd at best. And I don't think that's going to get any better next year when we have Loveland another year older and in the system, Burden another year older. Luther Burden, I think, is just kind of does everything DJ Moore does, but better at this point. So yeah, unless he's on a new team next year, if somehow he's traded or he's released, I don't know the exact details of dead cap or anything, but it's hard to see much better than what we got from him this year, in that kind of wide receiver 3 flex conversation. Maybe he scores a touchdown every once in a while, but not a guy that you're very excited to have.
You kind of inadvertently segued me, because my next question was going to be, do you think he's on a new team next year? Do you think the Bears just keep him under contract and under his money he has, or do they maybe look for a trade?
I would guess, if I had to guess, I would say he is on a different team next year. I don't feel like super strongly about it. He could return, but I do feel like he's just kind of unnecessary on this team. And I don't know. Obviously, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm just not sure that like he's super happy with how he is utilized or where his role is in the offense. I don't know how well he necessarily vibes with Ben Johnson. I just feel like they have very different personalities. And again, he just hasn't been a focal point. So I think he could be probably better utilized elsewhere. I think the Bears kind of have what they need with Rome and Burden and Loveland, and don't really need to be paying a ton of money to this kind of ancillary weapon at this point. So I think a separation would make the most sense. It just comes down to, again, what the money says on the contract, and what another team would be willing to give up.
I will say that, like, after that overtime touchdown catch, I mean, he was all smiles. And I think maybe there's a chance, like, he's just happy to be on a winner at this point in his career,
Very, very possible.
Yeah. So, and the Bears rookie QB contract, they have a little bit of money, to mess around with. It's possible they don't mind just hanging on to this contract. I could, if he's on another team, I think I'm gonna have a little bit of excitement for him, because I still got love for DJ Moore. I think he's a good player still, not where he was, absolutely, but I still think he's a good player in the NFL, and I could see him, if he's on another team, being like that undervalued wide receiver 1 somewhere, just because of some stink attached to his name.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's like a well-rounded player. Maybe doesn't have like any truly elite traits at this point. Not quite the yards after catch weapon he once was, not quite the downfield threat he once was, but just solid all around. I mean, maybe he's kind of in the Jacoby Myers mold a little bit at this point, of like just very savvy veteran, can kind of win, however you need him to win. I wouldn't say he's like necessarily a super high ceiling player, unless he's going to land in the absolute perfect offense, but certainly a guy that's serviceable. And I think I have him valued kind of in that late second round range, and I would struggle to give up a lot more than that in Dynasty for him, because again, just kind of a replaceable asset, especially if he stays on the Bears. But at the same time, if you can add him at that price to a team that does need wide receiver help, and you can kind of cross your fingers, maybe he does get a new situation, maybe lands on a team like, I don't know, like the Patriots or something, right? Maybe they need another wide receiver. I think you could see definitely a good return on that investment.
Yeah, I would pay a late second for DJ Moore, and I think it's kind of a speculative ad at that point that maybe he does move on to another team. I'll just say real quick, like in a semifinal Dynasty matchup I had this past week, I tried to acquire DJ Moore for that match, just to give my lineup a little more oomph with the injuries that were going on, and I basically got told that person still valued him at first. Now that person I know for a fact is a DJ Moore stan.
I guess so,
but I'm certainly not paying those prices. So I don't know what the real price is out there right now for DJ Moore, but I think a late second is a price I would pay.
Yeah. And I think after those last 2 games, I think we're like, for a while there, the vibes were just so bad, and he was just like so irrelevant, that I feel like that was a lot easier to get done. And now, even if you send that offer to a team that's clearly not in the mix, not competing, whatever, they're still going to say, like, look at these 2 games. Like, this is still a good wide receiver. He's worth more than that. So I don't even know how often that would get accepted, but that's just where I'd be comfortable.
Yeah. Moving on to another wide receiver, we got Chris Olave, who's honestly just, I love it. I'm loving what Chris Olave is doing, because it's tough to be a Olave fan over the last couple of years, because he felt like a player who never quite did what we wanted to, never quite reached the expectations we had. But right now, averaging 16.2 PPR points per game, 27.4% target share, and that's been shooting up since the Rashid Shaheed trade. He's on pace for career highs across the board. Tyler Shuck looks like a real QB right now. I think like there's still obviously things he can improve, but Kellen Moore has got him on the right track. this seems kind of real to like. Even if the Saints add some player in the offseason, this seems like, Chris Olave is finally reaching the heights that we expected from him when he came into the NFL. This is a player that I'm really, really excited about. A player I want to be really invested into in 2026. I'm afraid he might be unattainable in Dynasty right now for like the price that someone's probably going to ask.
Yeah, I mean, he is a guy that I've always been a fan of, and I have a good amount of him in Dynasty for that reason, because he just was never that. After his rookie year, he had shot up. He was like a 3rd round startup pick, and then since then he's kind of just tumbled down and down and down, because he hasn't had the quarterback play. He's had the concussions. It's just like nothing has lined up well for him. He's always been a very efficient player. My favorite stat to throw around this offseason was that Garrett Wilson had never had a season of 2 yards per out run, and Chris Olave had never had a season under 2 yards per out run in his career. And the difference in the way those guys were talked about was always so interesting to me, where like they were clearly both being held back by outside circumstances, and one guy was getting way more excuses than the other guy. And that's not even to say Chris Olave is actually a better wide receiver than Garrett Wilson, but I think they're in similar company as talents. And now that you have Tyler Shuck there and Kellen Moore, who's willing to dial up the pass volume, who's willing to run a lot of plays, is a good play caller, play designer, you're really seeing that. So, he's been a riser for me, even as somebody that was high on him, because I just didn't know this type of explosion was coming, that it was possible. I certainly wasn't a Tyler Shuck believer until I saw it. But at this point, I think he's clearly capable, competent enough to support Olave as a fantasy asset. I don't know what you need to see from the guy who has, I think, the same number of targets this season as Puka Nacua, or like basically.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's like scoring touchdowns now. I mean, it's awesome. So
what a time!
I think I think it's really interesting. I guess the concussion history would be like the one thing from a dynasty standpoint that you could point to and say maybe he needs to be slightly discounted, because that can come back up and it can be a big deal. But I mean, otherwise, what is separating him from a Garrett Wilson in Dynasty? What is separating him from a Nico Collins in Dynasty? I guess is a question I've been grappling with, because you sort of have this like anchoring to what you already expected a player to be and how you valued them, and then they start to defy those odds, but like you often don't adjust as much as you maybe should if you were being totally rational and you removed your previous expectations from them. So I don't know. I guess it's a question to kick over to you. Like how high is too high for Chris Olave?
Well, why shouldn't Chris Olave be over Garrett Wilson? We actually have some faith in his QB. Yeah. We have no idea what's happening for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. It's a fair question. Would you, just because it's on my mind, I was updating my dynasty rankings. I'm just curious where you would land on these. Mm-hmm. Would you rather have Chris Olave in dynasty or Ladd McConkey?
Oh, Olave.
Okay. Yes, I agree with that. I had to move Ladd down. It was a very sad moment for me.
Nothing against Ladd there. It's like Quinton Johnson emergence. I think Trey Harris is a real player. Like that's a team who wants to run the ball too. Like there's just a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah. What about Chris Olave or Emeka Egbuka?
This one hurts because like I was a massive Egbuka fan coming into this year. Loved him as a prospect. Was really high on him in seasonal stuff. I had lots of exposure to him, and season starting, and I'm like, of course, like he's doing this, and then and now I'm like, oh my gosh, what was that? Just like his Linsanity run? Like is that never going to happen again? Because
what is going on? Yeah,
he was legitimately dropping passes, looking bad. Like most of it was his fault,
And now he's running fewer routes than Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, that is a tough one.
It's really crazy.
I would say just because Mike Evans looks like he's not slowing down. Chris Godwin, I still expect to be there. Jalen McMillan's obviously going to be there. It's going to be muddy. I'm going to take Olave because I have a lot of faith in what that is right now.
Yeah, and that's right where I have him. Right, like right now, I have Egbuka like 2 spots ahead of him, and I'm like staring at it. Like I think I might need to flip it. I think I might need to change that because like there's so much more clarity right now with Olave's situation. He's not old. He's 25.
Right.
Yeah. So I think he's a guy that you might be able to still go out and get in Dynasty. Because like I'm a longtime believer who has him on my teams. I'm still like, I don't know if I want to move him up that high. And it's like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop because I've been like let down by Chris Olave so many times. So yeah, I mean, he might be a guy you can still go out and acquire. He might be a guy that's undervalued even in seasonal next year. But yeah, he's having an amazing season.
Yeah. In general, takeaway, we want to be in on Chris Olave.
Yeah.
But for now, for this last player of the day, I'm going to bring the mood down a little bit because this is a sad one. Quinshon Judkins, terrible injury. After having what was a really good season considering everything that was going on around him, the Browns' offensive line was dreadful. They were at the end of the season. They're now basically down to one starter. I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, the QB situation has been pretty bad all year long. But still, he was averaging 12.3 PPR points per game entering week 16. He had the 49th ranked run blocking ranking, according to PlayerProfiler.com, but was still 13th in yards after contact per attempt, 11th in missed tackles forced. And then word is broken fibula, dislocated ankle, may have avoided actual knee ligament damage, which was the big one. These injuries, from my understanding, as I am no expert, carry like a 4 to 5 month recovery time, which means he could be ready for next season. But these are pretty serious injuries. Just because he's ready for next season doesn't mean we're going to get this same Quinshon Judkins. I always get a little bit tricked up when I'm saying his name, but like I think of like Tony Pollard when he broke his leg towards the end of the season, and then came back, and we're like, this isn't Tony Pollard. Like he was getting the volume we wanted, and it wasn't the same player. And I'm really afraid. Yeah, I'm really afraid 2026 is not going to look good for him. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's added to by the fact that this offense is probably not going to make a massive turnaround in one offseason. Like, even if they do, I think the smart thing, and they draft a new quarterback this NFL draft, like there's still issues with the weapons. There's issues with the offensive line. So you could have a situation where Judkins is coming back, a running back that already doesn't really catch a lot of passes, and very much his fantasy calling card. If he's going to hit a ceiling, it's going to be very much Cleveland Browns Nick Chubb, which is break off long explosive runs and finish at the goal line. And I don't know how many explosive runs he's breaking off of a broken leg, and I don't know how many times the Cleveland Browns will approach the goal line in 2026. So it's like, it does feel like it's setting up to be kind of a lost season for him. I mean, you can certainly hang your hat on the fact that he's younger than somebody like Tony Pollard who suffered this injury, and maybe he bounces back a little bit better for it. But it's still happening here very late in the season. So yeah, kind of a guy that I'd be willing to go out and see if you can buy low on for maybe like the price of a late first in Dynasty. Somebody that you can maybe swing on in seasonal drafts, like late as an upside running back pick. I don't know where. I honestly have no idea where his ADP would land in like a redraft league if you were doing one in January. But yeah, maybe speculate there. But I do think more likely than not, we're not going to see any kind of a massive Judkins breakout next year. If anything, it would be 2027.
I'm going to be mostly hands off and kind of just watch where his price point ends up being across formats and see if I want to, get in at that price or not. I was trying to think about like redraft ADP, like what would I think would be appropriate? And I don't know if he's like a 7th round running back, which I think is probably appropriate for like a volume dependent running back who you don't think is necessarily like has the biggest ceiling. I could see like that being an appropriate price, but I don't know if I even want to draft him at that price.
Right.
Dynasty, a late first, it probably is appropriate, but not when I want to pay either. Yeah. Like because in Dynasty also, like I'm thinking like if I'm going to buy the injured rookie running back that I'm excited about, I might just go get Cam Skattebo instead because his injury happened earlier and he might be a little bit healthier going into the season. And I don't know. I think I might even like Skattebo more as a player a little bit just because his pass catching chops, and he's on an offense with Jackson Dart who we can get excited about.
That is a good point. Pretty similar. I mean, different draft pedigree, obviously. Judkins a little bit younger player, a little bit more of like a traditional prospect, but obviously we saw that didn't really matter for Skattebo coming in and producing right away. So I have them pretty far apart right now in my rankings, and I'm kind of revisiting that. Is that rational? So right now where it sits, I have Judkins at, I guess not that far. They're in the same tier, but I have Judkins as my 56th overall player. He's still my running back 14, at least after my initial update. I've got Scattaboo about 10 spots down, though he is the next running back on the list. So maybe those guys need to be closer. You make a good point that the injury was earlier. I probably reason to believe the Giants offense could be better than the Browns offense next year. Maybe, I mean, it couldn't be, probably isn't going to be worse.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
really
do have
just
that
belief
pass
in Dart.
catching element as well. So it just comes down to whether we, have any fear that the Giants are going to bring in competition. And weirdly enough, I'm usually the guy that's very hands off on day 3 running backs that don't have the opportunity to like fully entrench themselves. But I get like Cam Scatterbo just has this like aura about him where I'm like, they're not going to
Yes.
replace this guy. Like he
Yes.
is like a heartbeat of this team. Like he's
Yeah.
absolutely going to come back and be the starter, where I rarely feel that about a day 3 guy, but I think he's kind of immune to that tag just because he has like such a strong brand.
Yeah, the Giants were gutted when that injury happened. Like
Yeah.
the moment that they had Dart and Scattaboo on the field at the same time doing their thing, like this is they found, okay, this is who we are. This is what
Yeah.
our offense is.
It
This is what our
sucked.
team is. Yeah. But yeah, Judkins, again, I think I'm mostly just going to be kind of hands off until I start to see some like price points kind of cement themselves, and then I can decide what I want to do about them, just because it's a tough injury. And like, even with the timeline that we're given, there's no guarantee that that's the way it's going to go and everything will be okay. So it's tough.
That makes a lot of sense. I agree with you there. And to be honest, I wasn't even that big on Judkins coming out, and I had to kind of scramble to adjust. When he came in, he looked good. He wasn't necessarily letting up the box score, but like he passed the eye test as a rusher, had some exciting plays, and I was like, okay, this guy is actually pretty good. He's going to get a ton of volume. He's kind of maybe Josh Jacobsy in how he's going to provide fantasy production, and then now it's like we're going back the other way, and I'm trying not to lean back into my initial tendency of being kind of hands off with him, and now I'm trying to balance being a hater and being rational. And so, yeah, I think you make a good point. I think I'm actually going to move him down a little bit, or move Scattaboo up, and just kind of try to have them meet somewhere in the middle.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think Judkins certainly looked better once he got in the NFL than even he did in college, I thought. I wasn't a hater the way that you said that you were, but I did think that there was something behind some of the advanced metrics behind him in college. Some of the yards after contact stuff wasn't that great, but then he gets to the NFL and it's all very great. And like that matters more than the college stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, this was great. I really appreciate you coming on and joining me. Please let everyone know where to find you, find all your stuff.
Yeah, man, that was fun. Appreciate it. You picked some good players. Those are definitely interesting ones at this point in time. And I had a lot of thoughts for sure. You can find all my stuff at Pure Potential on YouTube. So fully Dynasty content, just going to be totally honest. If you're not a Dynasty player, you're not going to enjoy it. But weekly Dynasty content, strategy, buys and sells, all that, anything Dynasty, you'll find it there. And that'll be weekly throughout the off season, January, February, March. The Dynasty sickos do not rest. We will look ahead to the 2026 draft. We will, send offers to all of your league mates that are in hibernation and at them repeatedly until they get back to you. So I'll be there making content if you want to check it out. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And everyone follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Patterson FF. If you aren't already, you can follow me at WyattB_FF. Make sure you have liked and subscribed to this video. Check out everything PlayerProfiler.com. Check out my usage report that drops every Monday on PlayerProfiler.com, although that will be ending soon as the fantasy season will be ending soon. But I will still have articles coming out every week over there. Like and subscribe if you haven't, like I said already. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you next time.